Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. In fact, these guys are probably one of the most reviewed breweries here on Rampant Lion Reviews. So we've had many different beers from these guys over the years, a good few different styles, but I think it is still fair to say this brewery is best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, although in recent times they have diversified quite a lot. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I know these guys can do very well. It's also one of their latest releases through Stigbergets here in Sweden, and it has had some very good write-ups. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head up towards Gothenburg once again. Göteborg, as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. Got to get the Gothenburg catchphrase in for the Gothenburg beers because it is just channel tradition these days. But for this review, we are going to return to the wonderful Stigbergets Bryggeri. So this particular beer is called Condorita. It comes in at 6.8% ABV, and this is another New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. Now, this beer was released as part of the Lokalt Småskaligt assortment through Systembolaget for February of 2022, and last month they released the Condor, which was a 7.8% New England double IPA. So I'm guessing that this one is intended as the little brother or little sister, whatever, to that beer. But like I say, that one was very, very nice. So I do have high hopes for this one, and I've heard good things about it too. But it's been a wee while, I think, since I had a single IPA from Stigbergets, so this should be quite interesting. Most of the beers that we've had from them in recent times have been double IPAs, if memory serves me correctly. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what it has in store for us. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Stigbergets Bryggeri before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer based on the geography tagging system. Just go to the search bar, put your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like in there. If I've reviewed beers from the area you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Swedish playlist along with many other things, and there are a good number of playlists there for you to check out as well. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a little bit about Stigbergets Bryggeri once again. So, Stigbergets Bryggeri, as I've mentioned to you many a time before, are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg, and the company was founded by Nils Hultkrantz and Richard Simonsson. So, the pair owns two bars that share the one kitchen. This is the Bar Kino and the Hagabions Cafe, which can be found on Linnegatan in the city, and these both opened back in 2007, but the building is actually an independent cinema. You'll find the Bar Kino in the basement and the Hagabions Cafe in the kind of atrium. But yeah, it's quite a nice place, and you can check out my out and about video I filmed there if you want to have a wee look at it. But I do hope I can go back sometime. But originally, the idea that these guys had was to brew a few beers that they could sell in their bars, but this led to them kegging the beer and selling it onto other pubs before they eventually started bottling the beers in November of 2014. So the original beers that they were brewing were mainly English and German styles, but they soon started to experiment with the more kind of punchy and hoppy American beer styles. The original head brewer was Ole Anderson, who is of course one of the co-owners of OO Brewing, also based in Gothenburg, and he stayed with the company until April of 2017, and he was the creator of the GBG Beer Week beer for 2016, and also the Amazing Haze, which was released under the Stigbergets name too. But around the same time he created the Narangi, which is the OO one, and those are three of the four cult classic Swedish New England IPAs for me, along with the New Sweden IPA from Opigård's Brewery. So those are four IPAs that you really need to check out. But like I say, he left the company to focus full-time on OO Brewing, and he was replaced for a short period of time by Barnaby Struve, who was one of the vice presidents at Three Floyds in Munster in Indiana, close to Chicago, over in the US. But around this time, they moved to Partihalarna, where they were brewing 5,000 litre batches at a time, and they also began working on some sour beers when they were there as well. At this point, they also started selling their beers in these four 440ml cans as opposed to the original 330ml bottles. Go and check out some of my older reviews if you want to see those. But this has allowed them to export their beer a lot more and get their name out there across the European continent. These days, though, they have a brew team of Ollie Banks, who used to work for Beavertown in London, and also Lucas Munraid, who worked for All In Brewing, one of the numerous gypsy breweries operating in the Gothenburg area. In the summer of 2020, though, they moved to a new facility at Ringön, and they've been brewing some lambic beer there as well. They've got a lot more space there. They've got a bigger barrel program. As I say, they're doing these lambic beers as well, and they are talking about opening up a bar at the brewery and having swimming facilities and stuff like this. It seems like it's going to be quite an interesting facility. The article I read about this a year or so ago was talking about it being an experience brewery, so I'll need to have a look at that and see what they've actually done toward that before the next Stigbergets video. In April of 2020, they opened up their own bar in Stockholm, and they also have their own folköl shop in Gothenburg as well. So for those of you watching abroad, folköl in Sweden is anything that is 3.5% and below. That can be legally sold in the supermarkets. Anything above that has to be sold through Systembolaget, the state-owned alcohol monopoly. But yeah, like I said, over the years, these guys have been doing lots and lots of different beers, and as of February 2023, when we're filming this one, they've produced around 230 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. But yeah, that's everything we really need to say about Stigbergets Bryggeri for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can again check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with the latest goings on, and you can check out the Untappd page to learn a little bit more about all the different beers they've done. So yeah, let's go on and have a wee look at the beer itself. So I'll just let you have a wee look at the can before we open this one up. There you can see the little condor kind of catching a snake or something like that. I have actually seen one of these birds catch snakes before, and it's pretty impressive. Although I think that might have been a bird in Japan, if I remember correctly. But there you can see plain silver top on the can. Does look pretty nice. This is a 440ml can, of course, and I believe this beer cost me about 50 Swedish kronor. So that is €5, about £4.50 sterling, maybe about $5.50 American, something like that. But yeah, it does look pretty nice. The artwork on this one is by Neil Paling, who I think has done a number of Stigbergets things before. I do recognise that name. But like we said earlier, this one is a 6.8% New England Hazy IPA. Apparently it's triple dry hopped. The hops in this one apparently are Citra, Nelson Sauvin and Idaho 7. We know all of these hops quite well. Citra, American, 14% alpha acid. Can give you a good little bit of grapefruit, lots of juicy mango, and then a little bit of a lemon-limey character in a New England IPA. Nelson Sauvin, of course, from New Zealand, 16% alpha acid, big sort of white, green, grapey, or even gooseberry type notes out of that one. And then Idaho 7, another American hop, about 14% alpha acid normally, and it will give you quite a little bit of, you know, it's going to give you these kind of softer tropical fruits, very juicy mango, but also like papayas, apricots, and a bit of pineapple too. So yeah, quite an interesting hop mix, this one. So yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. So here we are. Oh, this looks pretty damn gloopy for a 6.8%. I'm going to say that straight away. So I think that's enough for us to have a look at the moment to see the colour and things of the beer. But yeah, it does look very, very nice. Yeah, so this beer is poured pretty much as you would expect of a New England IPA. I think we've maybe got about 2/3 of it in the glass at the moment. But yeah, before the head on this beer disappears, you can see there's about a 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head there. It's actually got quite a little bit of, you can see the bubbles in this one are kind of medium to large, to be honest with you. There's quite a bumpy head that's in this beer actually. But in terms of the colour of this one, I would say that this is almost akin to peach juice. I always like comparing the appearance of New England IPAs to different fruit juices because that's just what they remind me of. But yeah, the appearance of this beer is almost akin to like a peach juice or something like that. But yeah, it looks good. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar is caramelised and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put in will affect the colour of the beer as well. But yeah, remember those 2 variables are not things you have to consider all that much when it comes to New England IPAs. It's very uncommon to barrel age these or put adjuncts in them. But in terms of the level of haze of this beer, like I said, this is definitely one of the soupier and gloopier 6.8 percenters that I've come across. So remember, with New England IPAs, the level of haze in these beers depends on the oak content, the wheat content, and to a degree the yeast as well. But you can see the head on this beer has faded away to be a nice thin foamy layer. You've got a thicker ring just around the edge of the glass, but it does look very, very nice. So 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of that head there, but overall it does look very, very nice. So yeah, very soupy and gloopy 6.8% New England IPA, this one. Not a lot in the way of visible carbonation, but yeah, it looks good. So I think that's everything we need to say about the appearance of this one. Let's go on and have a wee look at the aroma. Very curious about this. Oh yeah, that does smell quite nice. So first impression of this one is that it's going to be a kind of wheaty and barley malt leaning New England, this one. It's got quite a nice bright green component to it, lots of tropical, soft, fruity, juicy characters as well. It just goes together really quite nicely. So yeah, I get the feeling this is going to be another very solid New England IPA from Stigbergets. And it's one of the things, as I say, I tend to go for double and triple New Englands these days because, you know, back in the day, the thing that always got me with the New Englands was how heavy the mouthfeel was, and I loved that about them, the big creaminess. But I think, you know, over time, you get used to it, and so you look to keep that mouthfeel going, but then you have to go up the alcohol scale for it. But Stigbergets usually have found a good way of giving you a nice thick mouthfeel with these lighter single IPAs as well, so that's something to keep in mind. But when it comes to the New England IPAs, for me there are 6 elements of the flavour to consider. So you've got the more farmhousey and yeasty type characters, you've got the rye leaning grainy side of things. Those two are a bit more prominent in American brewed New England IPAs as opposed to European brewed ones. But you've also got the barley malt bread, the wheaty bitiness, the oaty creaminess, and then you've also got the sweeter element of the malt base as well. So yeah, this is quite interesting when it comes to this one. But yeah, because you can smell this one's got a good balance between the wheat, the oats, and also the barley malt. But that's just me. But we'll try and break the aroma down and just describe it for you a wee bit more in depth, actually. So yeah, for me, I get, now that I've kind of taken a step back from it, I do get more oaty character out of this one too. But definitely, you can smell that lovely, fresh, white bready bread crust coming out of this one. It's absolutely great. So yeah, lovely little bit of that fresh white bready bread crust in there. There's a little touch of a Jacob's cream crackery note to this beer, and a little bit of that kind of slightly woody character that you can get out of these ones too. So definitely getting a wee bit of that. So yeah, definitely just that a little touch of that woody character for sure. And then yeah, you've also got, yeah, just there is definitely a little touch of that woody character in there, but above all of that, you start to get the more fluffy, white bready character coming out of the beer, which I really like. So you can smell that fresh, fluffy white bread in there. There's also a little bit of wheat. You can kind of smell that the wheat in this beer is quite smooth, but at the same time, I do get a little bit of bitiness out of the wheat on the back of the nose. But for me, the wheat is mainly smoothing everything out. And then on top of all of that, you've got the, on top of all of that, you have the nice big kind of oaty notes. And as I've said before, for me, the oaty character in these New England IPAs is often an indicator of how fresh the beer is. The creamier the oats are, the fresher they are, the drier they are, the older the beer is. For me, I don't think this beer is at its prime freshness, but it's still in good condition. I think this one's maybe been in the can about 4 weeks or something like that. It just smells like that to me. But the other thing you have to remember with New England IPAs as well is that it's kind of good to let these sit in the can for about 2 weeks just to mellow out so that you don't get too much green out of them, especially when the other thing to think about is the dry hopping as well with these beers. But yeah, you do get quite a little bit of oaty creamy character out of this one. I'm going to sneeze. This is going to be annoying. I'll sneeze about 10 times in this video now. It's me. Hopefully not too much more, but yeah. So on top of that oaty creaminess that you have in this one, as I say, the oats do lean toward that creamy side of thing. You do get a little bit of that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type note. So yeah, there's a lot of that going on. So yeah, aroma wise in that sense, I do like how the more that I smell of this, the more creaminess that I get out of it. And my nose is just on the right side, it's gone a little bit funny now just because I've sneezed. But on the left side it's fine. But yeah, the malty side of this beer is quite nice. I get more and more pungency out of the wheat the more that I smell of this beer too. So that's worth, that is worth keeping in mind. But yeah, a nice smelling beer, I have to say. From the malty side of things, I think that's everything we do need to say about the malty side of the beer, to be honest with you. But on the hoppy side of things, then the green component first. This one has a very bright floral character to it, and as I've said before, there are three types of hoppings when it comes to IPAs. Early edition hopping within the first hour of the wort boil, that gives you mainly your bitterness. Late edition hopping within the last half hour of the wort boil, that gives you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma. Then dry hopping after the wort boil is complete, that is all about the flavour and aroma. So yeah, with usually the way you can tell them apart, well, New England IPAs rely on the latter two, late and dry hopping. West Coast IPAs use all three. So that's why West Coast IPAs smell distinctively more deep and dank in their green components than New England IPAs, which are a bit more grassy and floral. So are a bit more bright, I guess you could say. But yeah, for me, with this beer, there's a little tiny bit of earthiness in there, but really not a lot. Very bright floral aromaticity. All three hops, the Citra, the Idaho 7, and the Nelson Sauvin can give you that, although I think it's most likely to be the Citra and the Nelson Sauvin that are giving you such a bright floral character. Then you've got a nice kind of bright, zesty, grassy note, which I think is more likely to be associated with the Citra. But yeah, on the fruity side of things, it is exactly as you'd expect if you know these hops. There's a lovely kind of, there is a lovely little bit of kind of stronger passion fruit in there. And that's more, yeah, that's going to be from the Citra, I would say. Big, ripe, juicy mangoes. That's going to be both Citra and Idaho 7 that are giving you that. There's softer apricot underneath. There is a little bit of, there's a little bit of softer apricot in there. There's a little bit of juicy pineapple as well. And then you have that, kind of Nelson Sauvin, the white, green, grapey, gooseberry type thing. It's very, very distinctive. The fruity notes in this beer are not a surprise to me because I know these hops pretty damn well, so you kind of know what you're getting. But I would say it's really the juicy mango, it's the big ripe mango that comes out of this one for me the most. And then yeah, you've got a bit of the passion fruit and a bit of the other stuff, the sort of gooseberry, white, green grape from the Nelson Sauvin in there. But I think Idaho 7 is kind of taking the lead in this one. I'd be curious to know what the ratios of the hops were during the dry hop. But yeah, the Idaho 7 sticks out of this one a wee bit for me, I have to say. But yeah, I think aroma wise this is very, very nice. So as I always say, take a wee bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is about time that we taste this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the Condorita, a 6.8% New England Hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Stigbergets Bryggeri in Gothenburg up on the Swedish West Coast. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. That is pretty damn nice, I have to say. Yeah. Straight away, I mean, we've had many IPAs from Stigbergets before. Many doubles, a couple of West Coasters, but obviously a lot of New Englands. And this is, for me, the first impression I have of this one is that this is one of their more kind of barley malt leaning New Englands. It's very, very smooth and very creamy at the same time, actually. So yeah, I do like how that all that goes together. Actually, it's pretty awesome. But yeah, it's been a wee while since I've had a single from from Stigbergets. But it's not, the other thing I would say about this one, just on the first couple of tastes, it's nowhere near as kind of bright and floral as I thought it was going to be. This one is a little bit more kind of creamy and juicy, actually. So that's pretty interesting. You know, it's kind of interesting how some beers stick. They give you exactly what you expect from the aroma, whereas others, you know, they diverge quite a little bit from what you might expect. So yeah, this is good. Anyway, in terms of the in terms of the in terms of the flavour, then let's break this down and describe it as we always do. Middle third of your palate. Backbone of the beer is, as always, that little bit of fresh white bready bread crust that comes out of the beer right away. So, yeah, fresh white bready bread crust in this one. I think it goes together really nicely from that perspective. But yeah, fresh white bready bread crust in there. On top of that, you get toward the front of that middle third of your palate, you get a little touch of woodiness in there, but then you've also got the Jacob's cream cracker type notes out of the beer. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust, a little bit of a Jacob's cream cracker sort of thing, and a little bit of woodiness in there. But yeah, I think that goes together pretty well, actually. You do get a little bit more kind of graininess and dryness out of this beer the further into the flavour you go, and it works. It really does work. On top of that, though, you've got a good little bit of a kind of wholemeal brown bready type character coming out of this one. It's got a little bit of a wet brown bready character to it as well. So yeah, I do like, as I say, I do like how that I do like how that kind of pieces together. You've got this wet kind of wholemeal brown bready character in there, but then above that you've got that more fluffy, you do have that more kind of fluffy, fresh white bready character coming out of the beer too. So yeah, that is really nice. And the white bread actually gives you a little touch of sweetness the further into the aftertaste you go as well. So yeah, but above all of that, you have this slightly more dense layer, which is the wheat. And as I was if I remember rightly, I was picking that up in the aroma, that the wheat was acting mainly as a smoothening type agent in this beer. So you can feel that the wheat is quite smooth in this beer. It's not really bitey, to be honest with you. But above the wheaty layer, you can feel the oats. Like if you go down the middle line of your tongue, you can feel the nice kind of creamy oaty character. And as you push out toward the sides of the palate there, you get that little bit of kind of oaty dryness coming out of the beer. So yeah. So yeah, there's that little bit of there's that little bit of just oaty dryness in there. So like I say, that's always an indicator of how old your beer is. I think this one's about 4 weeks, because you've still got a lot of oaty creaminess in this one. I do suspect there's a wee touch of Golden Promise malt in this one, because in the dead centre of your palate, you've got a little bit of that kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing. And as you push out toward the edges of your palate, you've got a wee bit of that more kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity type quality to the beer as well. So yeah, the way that goes together is pretty nice, actually. So that gets a thumbs up from me too. Yeah, so Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing. There's a little bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuity character as well, and yeah, I do think that goes together quite nicely. I think that's everything we really need to say about that middle third of the palate, to be honest with you. I think that's that, but yeah. Has got a wee bit of complexity, this one, but you do get more, it feels to me, you get a bit more of the oaty, the dry side of the oats further into the aftertaste with this beer as well. So yeah, I could be wrong about the age of this one. I really would be curious to know how long this has been in the can, because I know they brew it, the Stigbergets tend to brew a couple of batches of the beers from what I've heard. So they brew one when it gets released initially, then they brew another one that goes to Systembolaget as well. So yeah, in terms of the back third of the palate, then let's look at that. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you do get a little bit of a bready build up in there. So a nice little bit of white bready bread crust. The base of that back third of your palate is of course the bread crusty character, and it's a little bit drier. So I do like how that comes out. But remember, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back on the palate, sweeter flavours come out further forward. So yeah, more kind of dry bread crusty character there. A little bit of a kind of Jacob's cream cracker on top of that. Then you've got the wholemeal brown bready character in there. You can feel that layer. It has a wee bit of density to it still, but it just feels that little bit lighter and more airy. So yeah. So yeah, you've got that little bit more kind of brown bready character. Then above all of that, you've got a more fluffy, white bready, airy type note out of this one. So yeah, that does go together quite nicely. You know, it's the same layers if you like, but they just feel taller in a sense. But above all of that, you've got a little bit of the wheaty character in there, and the wheat, it's not really bitey, but it just has a little bit of dryness to it. That's what kind of caps off these layers on the back third of the palate. But above all of that, you do have a little bit of a lighter, more kind of very farmhousey, woody type bread in there. Maybe just a little touch of honeycomb too. But yeah, back third of the palate, you can feel the flavour is definitely taller. Then as you move into the middle third of your palate, you can feel it just kind of squashes down and condenses a little bit. So yeah, taller layers on the back third of the palate, then a bit more condensed on the front, on that middle third of your tongue. Onto the hoppy side of things then, the green component. Back corners of the palate, there is a little bit of a very smooth earthiness in there, and I don't know which of the three hops that would be, Citra, Nelson Sauvin or Idaho 7. I really don't know about that. But as you move further forward, the smooth earthiness gives you a little touch of herbal quality eventually, and then as you reach the front corners of the palate, you have a little bit of a more kind of floral aromatic sort of thing going on as well. So yeah, the way that beer goes together is the beer goes together in that sense is quite nice, and you get more floral aromaticity out of this beer the further into the aftertaste you go. But round the front curve of the palate, it's definitely a little bit lighter and a wee bit more grassy, and yeah, the floral character just kind of resonates there a little bit into the further into the aftertaste you go. But yeah, in terms of the green component, I think that's everything we need to say. So fruity side of the beer then, border region between front third and middle third of your palate. Again, you get a little bit of a kind of bready build up in there. And I'd say there's a bit of brown bread in there, but also a little bit of the white bread. The base of that front third of your palate it has a little bit more bread crust to it. There's also, yeah, you've got a little bit of the bread crust in there, a little bit of the cracker, and also a smooth and slightly dense layer of white bread. Then above that you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity layers, the juicy fruity esters, sorry, not layers, push their way out of the beer. So yeah, the fruity character is a wee bit different to what I was picking up in the aroma as well. So let's just go through that. So when you take the beer in, definitely nice big ripe juicy mangoes in there. That's the Citra, it's the Idaho 7. At the back of that front third of your palate, you have got a wee bit of you've got a bit more passion fruit coming out of this one, so you can feel that slightly stronger passion fruit in there, but it's not overly prominent. But then yeah, the back half of that front third of your palate is big juicy mango. But as you move toward the middle third of your palate, or the middle of that front third of your palate, you do start to get, you can feel a little bit of the drier apricot in there, a wee bit of the papaya. Then above that, you've got a sort of pineapple-y type quality coming out of the beer as well. So yeah, that does go together really nicely in a sense too. But as you reach the front of that the front half of that front third of your palate, you really do get the Nelson Sauvin. You can feel that nice oily gooseberry. Yeah, you do get that nice oily sort of gooseberry and kind of white green grapey character from the Nelson Sauvin. There's maybe just a little touch of a lemony note just on the very front tip of the tongue, but nah, it's mainly the Nelson Sauvin that dominates that front half of the front third of your palate. So yeah, that goes together quite well. Yeah, I think that covers everything we need to say about this one. The fruity side of this beer is quite wet and quite juicy, and I do enjoy that. But yeah, I'm getting more creaminess and thickness and a wee bit of the oaty dryness out of this beer the further into the aftertaste we go. But yeah, it's very nice New England IPA, and the sort of mouthfeel you get from this is quite impressive for a single IPA, I have to say too. So on that note, let's round off with the mouthfeel. For me, it's kind of pushing toward the top end of mid-bodied, this beer. The carbonation is very smooth. It's quite a creamy mouthfeel, but yeah, there's still that little bit of wetness and things there too. In terms of the green component with this one, it's quite bright and floral, but I think this is a fairly standard sort of 30 IBU New England IPA. In the malt base, you've got a little bit of graininess and dryness in there, a bit of smooth bready character, the creamy oats, and then you've also got that little bit of kind of sweeter. You've got that little bit of sweeter character on the top as well, but mainly this is a creamy oaty New England IPA. Lots of soft tropical fruity character as well, then a wee bit of oily a wee bit of the oily character from the Nelson Sauvin as well. But yeah, I really like how this one goes together, so it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, very impressive single IPA, this one from Stigbergets. I think we'll need to keep an eye and see what they're releasing going forward. But yeah, this one was the Condorita, a 6.8% New England hazy IPA from Stigbergets Bryggeri in Gothenburg. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Stigbergets Bryggeri as well. And we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point very soon. But until the next time, Slange, Skål, cheers, see you guys later.